Need this, you think? Oh, no. I need that. Okay. Hi, good morning. Uh, I'm John Michael Key. I'm 20. No, I'm not. I'm 82 years old. I'm nearly 83. I came to faith 11 years ago. So I've got a very interesting background because I've got 70 years of doing something else and 10 years of really having my life changed. For certain, my life has changed. Um, the tough, arrogant, proud person that I was, and occasionally I still can be. It's still, so you scratch the surface sometimes, he appears, has basically gone. And I believe it's all to do with my journey to find and explore a life with Christ. I was born in the back streets of a Midlands town. You've got them here. Tin bath on the end of the toilet wall. Outside toilet. No bath. No inside bath. My father was in Burma. So basically, my father, I was christened in end of June, early July 1943. My father went to Burma in July 1943. And he came back in July 1946. So for the first 3 years of my life, I was brought up by ladies. My grandma, who I absolutely adored, my mum's sister, and my other grandma who lived a little way away. But although you can't say I never went to church, it certainly was a Christian background for me. You know, I was taught what was right and what was wrong, how to treat ladies, you know, and I was shouted at a lot. Because I think most little boys tend to be a bit argumentative. And I was no different from any of the other lads. So it's not, I'm trying to make myself out to be different because I wasn't. My father came back from Burma and he was a mess. He got bits missing off him. And he also mentally never really recovered from the horrors. What I need to tell you was up to the age of 19, when he actually joined the army, he was a choir boy in Nottingham Cathedral. He was a magnificent voice, absolutely magnificent voice. But when he came back, he certainly had no desire to keep a relationship with Christ. And obviously it affected me. I mean, little boys tend to watch their dads like hawks. Because whatever he is, I want to be one of them, you know. My father struggled though. And therefore the family struggled. So me and my brother, who was born in 1947, if I set the clock forward a little bit, we became sort of the local bandits, really. If you've got no money in the house, and bearing in mind, the National Health Service started the year my brother was born, then you go and pinch stuff. So my brother and I became really experts at nicking stuff. And then we had an account at a place called Jimmy Pepper's, who was the local scrap man. We actually had an account. And I was only 7, you know. But at the end of the day, we collected our stuff and we brought some money to the home. And with my grandma, she had a half decent pension for a lady, but I don't know how. But she was always good for the half a crown. So it was, John, would you go around to grandma and go and get half a crown? So I grew up in an environment which was very loving, Christian really in its background, but tough. You know, his sort of shoes tended to have cardboard in the bottom of them. and shirts' collars were often ripped off because they were too tight. So it's easy to say it was a nice childhood because it was. I was loved, but it was tough, and you see, the face of your mum. I remember coming out of. For some of you who've had disabled children, my brother was born with a deformity of the spine. And as a little boy now, I'm no more than 5, maybe 6, walking out of that establishment, which is called the Cripples Guild, with my mum absolutely in tears because she'd been told that her son would never walk. It was pretty painful. I mean, it really was. And you look at your mum's face, you look at your dad's face as you're growing up, and you suddenly, nothing matters other than how you see them. And if they are in pain, you struggle with it. So I became a bit of a rebellion. Anybody said anything to me, I'd fight. And I got myself into trouble. I mean, the police knew me very well. But they never got sent anywhere naughty. I normally got slapped around the ear by the local copper, and then my dad had beat 7 bells out of me. But at the end of the day, it was a reaction to the environment that I was growing up in. I went to a Church of England school because it was nearby, and I didn't like it. But at the end of the day, the people were nice and they were friendly, but I didn't like, the content was boring, to be honest with you. But anyway, at the age of 11, I think I don't know where I'm going off peaceful. But anyway, at the age of 11, there was a very well-known school in my town called Loughborough Grammar School, and it was a fee-paying school. And I remember the fees for the year were £480 for 1 year. And I won a scholarship to it. Each year they offered 2 scholarships for local boys to go to this school, and I won one of them. And absolutely detested it. And the reason why is because I didn't fit. And not fitting is part of my story, really. I didn't fit. I hadn't got the right shoes. I hadn't got the right coat. I didn't speak properly. I was a scrapper. And I wasn't somebody who would talk nice and go to the hunt meetings. And I didn't play cricket at that time, although I did learn to play cricket at that school. And I'm forever grateful of that one thing that I got from them. I went, I learned all the songs at school and all the hymns, but I never understood what it meant. I never related the words to the life of Christ where it was relevant. And it never joined up. I found out that the local parish church, Loughborough Parish Church, which is quite a big church, and in fact, if any of you go occasionally to Ripon Cathedral, the canon in Ripon Cathedral, Canon Wendy, she was the vicar in Loughborough Parish Church for over 10 years before she came to Ripon as the canon. I found out that you got paid if you in the choir. So I thought, that sounds like a good number to me. 1 and 6 for a funeral, and a shilling for weddings. So I thought, this is greatness. So I went to church for the second time in my life, because the first time I'd been christened in church. So I went to church and I sang and I enjoyed it. And I joined other choirs and I enjoyed it. And I played cricket from the team and I really enjoyed it. And suddenly my life changed. My life was changing. I was now 14 or 15. Okay, girls were pretty important in my life, but there were other things that were important as well. And I then suddenly was told that they asked me to sit the examinations to go to Oxford. And that, bearing in mind what I've said to you about not fitting, I didn't. I didn't want to do this. So how am I doing?
Very well.
Excellent. Oh, okay. Anyway, I forgot where I'm up. Tell me where I'm up to.
Did you want to go to Oxford?
No, I didn't. I didn't. But the school, you get pressurized by things. When you're younger, I sometimes, there are always people trying to say, you've got to go to church, John. You've got to do this. But if somebody tells me to do something, my answer is no. No, don't do that. So go to church. No, I don't want to do that. But you sing so well. Oh, yeah, but you're not paying me. This is a little lad. Bearing in mind, I'm now 13, 14. I was still on the 1 shilling for weddings and 1 and 6 for funerals. Nobody talked to me about things like services, except for occasional service. I remember going to an Ash Wednesday service, but except for occasional services, I never went. So there was a real breakdown for me between the education I was receiving about faith and what I was actually doing. It was just a breakdown. As far as I was concerned, these were boring people. They didn't play football. They didn't play cricket. They didn't do this. And so I struggled with a lot of the people. And I struggled with the messages. And I'm telling you this in detail because it's really, really important, this. And I could not get my head round. There was a guy in the sky who was telling me everything, and I couldn't see him. I couldn't hear him. What the hell was I doing trying to listen to him? Now, and honestly, I'm being honest with you. This is how I felt. I'm bearing in mind I'm 16 years old now. So I decided that I wouldn't take the Oxford exams. So the school asked me whether I'd like to leave. So I stayed another year, and then I went to work. I went to work for a company called British Gypsum, which was a fantastic experience for me, because there I was with working men in a mine, doing some sort of bits and pieces associated with mining gypsum, and then processing it. So here I was, and then they sent me down to London. There was a new process, 17 years old, with a microscope, on a train. And now life starts to take a different view. It takes a different move for me. Coming out of the railway station, 2 things happen. One, this rather attractive young lady asked me whether I wanted to do business. And I said, no, not really. I was so bloody terrified. I ran away. And I tell you, you can't run very fast with a microscope in your hand, I'll tell you. But I ran because I was frightened. I didn't know how to cope with these things. And I realized that at the age I was, something had to change. Something serious had to change. And the first change, I got back on the train. It was in London, St Pancras, after I'd done this trial. And when I got off the other end, I don't know why, I decided I was going to go to university. And I was going to go to the first university that would accept me. And I can't go on with a lot of these stories because it will actually take up too much time. But my life is absolutely littered with things like that. Got off an aeroplane. I'd been in Singapore. Got off an aeroplane. Got on the bus. Got off the bus in the terminal. And suddenly I'm phoning up my boss telling him to stick the job. And there's all things in my life is always about, I'm on the move and somebody's making a decision for me. I want you to know that one of the most important things beside my family, Julie, my wife, I have two children, Louise, who's got to be 58, and my son David, who's 54. And I have three granddaughters, who I absolutely adore. But then again, you'd expect me to say that. But they're lovely. And they have helped me to start to appreciate what modern life is about. So, because I still do things which are out of date, racist. I mean, I can be really racist. Not because I want to be racist, it's just the way I've been brought up. But they've dressed me down, told me off, and I've got a skin like a rhinoceros. I'll take anything, as long as I believe that people are being helpful and honest to me. So, anyway, so that's my grandchildren. I'm now married. My wife is a Catholic. She goes to church every week. She goes to confession once a month. And we travel around the country. We go from Hull to Holland. I go to Geneva for a while, back to Holland, back to the Midlands. I was in the northwest of England in Runcorn, up to the northeast of England, into Edinburgh, down to Scotland. It sounds like Mike, doesn't it? So we've been all over the place. And at each time I've moved, there's always been something which has caused me to move. Something's happened. Not a job offer. They were never important. It was something else. And I actually believed that I was being maneuvered back towards the northeast of England. What I didn't tell you was my mother came from the northeast of England. She was born in Stanley. My grandma was born in Dipton, which is just south of Newcastle. So my mother's family were all from the northeast, and my father's family, as you gather from the fact that I told you he was he sang at Nottingham Cathedral. My father's family was from Nottingham. My father's family were originally French. They were lace makers. They came to Nottingham, and they had quite a large lace factory. They were Huguenots, and they were hounded by the French to get out. So they got out before they were killed, I think. There's lessons to be learnt all that way. So my family, I have a French Bible. I mean, it's got all sorts of names in it. But it doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know the people behind it. It's just very interesting to see names back to 1710, I think it is. But at the end of the day, this country took them in. And I have a very strong view, which most of you probably won't share. I think if someone knocks on the door and says, I need your help, I actually really believe as a country we should let them in. Because my family were let in. And without my family being let in, I wouldn't be here today. Now, this is the first place I can stop. But I can continue for about another 10 minutes. So it's up to you. You want me to carry on? Okay. I want to tell you about why one of the things that caused me to become a Christian. Is this a problem?
No, it's not.
Simon, is this a problem?
What's that, John?
Is me carrying on it? Are you sure? Listen, I can walk away and carry on next week. Oh, okay. Right. I think some of you who know me know that music is very important to me. If anything, maybe I should have worked very hard to try to be a musician rather than just play my guitar in pubs and clubs and whatever. But I really like music. I love the sung word. I love big choral works. You know, these guys with big chests bellowing it out, ladies with little waists, you know. Well, I think it's wonderful to listen to what we can do with the human voice. And several years ago, I'm going to move the clock right forward now. I'm going to move it to 13 years ago. So I'm coming up to sort of time. All right. بكل قلبي توسلت إلى رضاك فارحمني حسب كلمتك. Oh, I've killed her. I've killed her, Parker. Yeah. I don't quite know why she's disappeared. I can play her from here. This lady and I became good friends. I heard her, I was working in London. I heard her sing in the Orthodox Church in London. And I went there because, again, it's this thing about if you're in the right place and people say something to you. I was working for the Kuwaitis, and one of the Kuwaiti people said, "Oh, this guy's bringing this lady over from Armenia, and you should listen to her voice." And I said, "Really?" He studied back in. It was interesting. Let me have one more go. No. Anyway, she's an Orthodox Christian. In fact, all of the music I have on this there's a lot of Orthodox Christian music. And I don't know whether you know that how beautiful some of the Orthodox songs are. The fact of the matter is it's difficult for us to really understand what they're saying, but you can get translations of them. So you could listen to them. In 8 years ago, me and 3 other gentlemen of like-minded brought that lady to London. We paid for her to come here, and she gave 3 or 4 concerts, and including coming to Newcastle. And I came to the Orthodox Church in Newcastle with her, with my wife as the chaperone for her, and it was wonderful. It was an experience like I couldn't believe how wonderful it was. All these things, I've told you, getting off planes, getting off trains, changing my life direction, all actually pointed me to there was something driving me. There was something pushing me, but I didn't quite know what it was. And then I met Keith Hall. Now, Keith Hall is actually a really important person for me. Jean James lived in Catterick Village, and Jean James and my wife were great friends. And Jean James had said to Julie, "Why don't you we have a thing called a grub club. Why don't you come to the grub club?" Now, I'd never been to anything with Julie. I used to take her to the church before she could drive, and I'd come back, pick her up, take the kids, and I had nothing to do with it. Nothing. But I came to the grub club, and suddenly I met some people who shared a lot of things that I thought were important in life: friendship, honesty, trust, all the simple things. And in the background of all these conversations, there was Christ. And bearing in mind, I was still of the opinion there was a funny fellow up in the sky there who nobody could see. But then I suddenly realized that there was influences, that had been influences on my life that had taken me from the back streets of a Midland town by basically just doing what I thought was right, but probably was what he was telling me to do, had taken me to a situation where I started to believe that there was something more. I sat with Keith twice in his house in Richmond, and it was like someone switching a light on. And I absolutely couldn't believe I came out and sort of like feet were about a foot off the ground. I'd never felt, sorry, hello. I'd never felt so wonderful, elated as I had after Keith had helped me to understand what Christ was all about. And like all scientists, well, I am a scientist, you have to understand that. I would things that I struggled with, miracles. You know, water into wine, well, yeah, but, you know, it's a bit difficult to really understand that. Keith was brilliant with me. What he said to me, John, it was, John, there's always bits that people struggle with. Put that to one side, because you believe very strongly now in two of the most important things. One, that you believe in God, and two, you believe in loving your neighbor. And I think he said, forget the rest. He said, if you just did that, that's all you need to know. And so Keith and I became very good friends. We're still good friends. I occasionally go down. I mean, I was in Hull for 7 years. So I occasionally go down to Hull to see him in his new little church. The next important person in my life is the vicar in Catterick Village. Her name was Lindsay Southern. She's no longer there. She's in Darlington now. What Lindsay did was she put the flesh on the bone, basically understanding what Christ was about. You know, if you can have you can understand believe in the two main commandments, which I did, but now I needed more. And so she spent a lot of time with me, going through the Bible, explaining stuff, helping me. But there was still a problem, because I still found the aspects of the music in that church environment wrong. And I still struggle with the music in that church environment, which is why I'm here. So what I'd like to do is to say, I hope you have a feeling for how I got here. If I've missed bits out that I've made it confusing for you, please ask me questions. But my journey to this place has been a beautiful journey. And for someone who would never have given you time for going to a church service 12 years ago, I look forward to seeing you on a regular basis. It's a pity we haven't got more people. But thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, that's not mine, is it?